Hello, brothers and sisters. Raven here. Today is going to be a little bit shorter than most because I am going to be just going through something quick out of a book that I've kind of been through before. I haven't discussed this on the channel. It is called The Bedrock. This is a book from Homestead Heritage that actually has multiple documents in it, not just one. And they're ones I've basically looked at the same kind of thing before, same kind of discussion. After going through it, I find there's one thing in this that you don't see in some of the other places that does kind of clarify further something I've said before and solidifies what I've been warning people about, and I've had some people deny or doubt they teach. So I wanted to show this one quote that is going to kind of confirm it even further than what we've seen before. Because one thing they do talk about quite a bit in this is their denial of the Trinity. And they go into that oneness again, which is a very different kind of oneness than what oneness really is, or even Unitarianism. It's their own view. And this quote that I'm going to read right now confirms that further than even the ones I've had before. This gives even more examples of how they explain that, of how they look at that. So I'm going to be reading out of page 122, where it says this. The birth of the man Jesus was a real historical event, and that flesh and blood man was born at a certain time in history and did not exist as a flesh and blood man before that time. When Jesus speaks to the Father of the glory that I had with you before the world began, this does not mean that this man existed before he was begotten, but it means that Jesus had been preconceived in the mind of God, the God who calls things that are not as though they were. Now, there's multiple problems with this, but first, to just sort of get out of the way, let's look at Romans 4:17 to clarify what that's talking about, because it's not talking about anything like what they're making it out to be. Romans 4:17 actually says this. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, in the presence of him whom he believed, God, who gives life to the dead and calls those things which do not exist as though they did. Two things. First, that do not exist, not do exist as though they did when they didn't. No, just simply do not exist. So it's not talking about the same kind of situation, number one. Number two, look at what it said first. Who gives life to the dead? This is talking about creation. This is talking about rebirth. This is not pointing to the idea that they're trying to say it points toward. This is pointing toward the way he said, let there be. And things were created. That's what this is really about. They want it to be about something else. So that passage they use is not saying what they're claiming. But the main reason I bring up this quote, you'll notice they're really pushing this thing that Jesus, the man Jesus, did not exist. As I've explained before, they don't truly believe Jesus was 100% man, 100% God. They say they do, but they mean 50% was 100% man, 50% was 100% God. That's the idea they're going off of here. And as I was reading this, I was expecting to hear what I usually hear. As always, every time I read stuff like this, I wonder if they're going to finally clarify, and it's going to end up being they don't believe what I've seen them teach many times, but every time they go back and they still teach the falsehood. Because I was reading this, and I came to that part near the end where it says, this does not mean that this man existed before he was begotten. I thought they were going to clarify. I was thinking in the back of my mind, okay, now they'll probably explain how he existed in spirit but not in flesh. But no, that's not what they say. They say, but it means Christ had been preconceived in the mind of God. Weren't we all? Are you going to say God is not omniscient and he didn't know about us either and he didn't preconceive? That can be said of everything that was created. You do that, you're taking away all of what that statement that they quote from John 17 is saying. This means they believe what I've been trying to warn people they believe, that Jesus was not God. He's man, and God was in him. It just reaffirms everything I've been trying to warn, everything I've been telling people. Look, they believe this. This isn't Christian. This isn't Christianity. This is something else. They seem to do as so many false religions and so many even some atheists try to do of honor Jesus, act like he was an honorable man, a good teacher, but not really God. And this simply reaffirms that's the way they see it. That's the view they're taking. That's why they're not Christian. If it is, then that word has no meaning anymore. And we really need to clarify that. Clarify what it is, what it means, what the Bible teaches. So next week, I hope to get into the conference they had this year at Homestead Heritage. I don't know how many of the videos I'll go through. I'll try going through all of them if I can. But I'm going to want to start with just usual messages. Then we'll go into some of the Q&A parts. And then we'll go into those extra ones that they took down off the channel. I want to go to those last. But that's what I hope to do next week, as long as nothing gets in the way. So I'll see you then. God bless.